Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We'll be getting started in just another minute or two to give more people the chance to join. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Before we start, I would like to introduce today's presenters, Scott Imhoff, our Senior Vice President of Product Management and Planning, and Derek Underwood, our Regional Vice President of North American Sales at Cambium Networks. I also want to encourage everyone to ask any questions that you may have during the presentation in the questions tab on the control panel, but without further ado, I'll pass it off to you, Derek.
Thanks, Riley. Appreciate that. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who is in attendance. We had a fantastic open house and certainly missed the folks who weren't able to attend live, but thought it would be a good opportunity for us to review the material. We had a lot of good information, good questions, good content. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to give a bit of a state of the union of Cambium and talk a little bit about the theme for the open house and our WISPA event this year. And then I'm going to quickly get over to Scott Imhoff so that he can walk us through the good stuff, the good detail that everybody joined to hear. So the theme for this year for Cambium Networks was, if it can be wireless, it will be wireless. And I think that resonates with a lot of our service providers who've had to certainly leverage wireless technology to deliver residential commercial access. So yeah, I think we'll, Scott, if you could go to the next slide, please. Got a few photos here. I think we wanted to show, it was, again, great. This was a fantastic event. It was nice to get back together after amidst this pandemic that we're in. But the Cambium turnout, both from a customer standpoint and from a Cambium employee standpoint, was fantastic. We had a lot of our product line managers, our engineers, our sales folks, marketing was in attendance. It was a great event, lots of good interaction. We also were really excited to get to show some of our new products and some of the new innovation that we're working on. So there are folks on here that were able to attend the event. We appreciate the attendance and interaction, but certainly look forward to getting everybody back together next year. Next slide, Scott. So this is, I think, a little bit, this was a big year for us. This was 10 years of being independent after WISPAPALOOZA 2011, coming out of Motorola Solutions. We were in a much different position. And this last 10 years, I think, has been fantastic for our customers, for us as a company. You know, we've seen huge innovation in terms of the industry as a whole, the technology, what our customers are demanding from megabits to gigabits. We've also really strengthened our relationships with WISPs across North America and with the organization of WISPA. I think it was, I think we've been, very committed to the organization and certainly have strengthened our relationships with service providers across the country. We really focus, I think, and continue to demonstrate this in some of the products you heard from Scott in really customer-driven innovation. What's going to help you guys deliver the right connectivity to your customers so that we can really give you that unfair competitive advantage in the marketplace. And lastly, we thank all of you for your partnership. Obviously, any of these relationships where there's so much dependency on one another, there's challenges, there's supply challenges, we're in a completely different environment than we've ever been. And so we appreciate all that you guys do for us, and certainly will continue to foster those relationships and build those partnerships. Next slide, Scott. One of the things that we like to do at Cambium is recognize those individuals and organizations for their commitment to delivering connectivity where it's needed the most. I think this is a great example of these Hero Connectivity Awards that we give out to those folks who have really separated themselves in terms of some of the things that they've done. And obviously, Drew Lentz was the 2020 Hero of the Year and did some amazing things in terms of delivering connectivity to folks who really needed it during the pandemic. So I think this is, again, an example, I think, where Cambium, in addition to the innovation and the product development and the things that we do, the organization and our CEO really stress the goodness that we provide. And I think that's our employees and our customers are very passionate about that. So we appreciate that, and certainly will continue to recognize those entities and individuals that really separate themselves and distinguish themselves from a commitment to delivering this connectivity where it's needed most. Next slide, Scott. So this is a great chart, I think, to demonstrate where we've been, where we're heading, and all the things that we've done in the last 10 years to really show, where our dollars and our talent is being spent. So when you look back, early days, it was very focused on delivering connectivity in that 25 to 30 to 40 megabit, 50 megabit. Then as we moved into the 450 lineup, I think what you saw from us was a real commitment, both with 450 and ePMP3K, to protecting that investment, innovating at the access point without requiring our service providers to go out and rip and replace all those subscriber modules. So, and certainly CN Medusa was groundbreaking innovation from a scalability and capacity standpoint. And then you saw us really kind of shift gears to some degree in terms of starting to focus on other ways for our service providers to add additional revenue streams to their business. We see that with CN Matrix and certainly the Wi-Fi, the CN Pilot line. When we're starting to see a big convergence between that enterprise LAN connectivity and fixed wireless. Also invested in technology like LTE and the Terragraph solution with CN Wave. Some of the other things I think you'll see Cambium continue to do, and you started to see it with CN Heat and Maestro, and that is improve the user experience and our management and scalability through software and planning solutions. And CN Heat is something that's still really in its infancy, but has so much benefit to our service provider customers in terms of improving your operational efficiencies. And the other area I think that we continue to demonstrate leadership is in utilizing all the spectrum that's available to us. It's our most precious natural resource, and Scott talks about that all the time. But as these spectrums like CBRS and 6 gigahertz become available and commercially viable, Cambium is going to continue to put a lot of effort into innovating and giving you guys solutions that you can utilize in those bands. Next slide, please. Investment protection with ePMP and PMP, we're going to continue to develop on those platforms. And as I mentioned, we're really going to put a lot of effort into 6 gig development. Scott will talk more about that. We're going to continue to leverage this CBRS band that has so much value to our service providers, both from a propagation and from a frequency protection standpoint. And we'll continue to innovate and develop on those platforms and give that investment protection to customers who have deployed those solutions. Next slide, please. So another area that we hear is something that our service providers are asking for is more support on the marketing side. How can we help you guys grow your business, get into some other vertical markets where providing wireless connectivity is starting to become more important, give you guys some marketing resources that are co-brandable with case studies and videos and brochures and flyers. The free virtual trainings is something that we've certainly put a lot of effort and investment into. Delivering more qualified leads. So for those of you who are more on the connected partner side of the house, trying to deliver more qualified leads at the end user level, certainly an area that we're putting our marketing resources and dollars behind. And then market development funds. What can we do as Cambium with you, with our partners, with our service providers to help improve some of the marketing activities that you guys are doing in the field and drive that demand so we can collectively grow. Next slide, please. So one of the things I think that we hear from service providers all the time is how can we be more efficient? We as a wireless ISP, just because we have coverage and towers in certain zip codes, that doesn't map to homes and cities. And I think, you know, one of the things that CN Heat has really done, and as it continues, as you guys continue to see some of the innovation that we're delivering with CN Heat, one of the big things that we're doing now is trying to identify specific addresses that we know that you can cover with reasonable tower heights, with reasonable antenna heights at the customer site, so that we can focus that marketing effort and those mailings just on customers that you can serve. And I think that's really important, right? It doesn't do any good for you to spend marketing dollars to get communication out to folks that may not be serviceable because of the topography or the ground clutter. And I think CN Heat is truly a game changer when it comes to giving you that ability to focus on marketing to customers that you can serve. We're also improving the timeliness in terms of getting those results, and again, matching those results to specific customer addresses and giving you actionable items in terms of being able to send those mailers out directly with our CN Heat platform and our partners. Next slide, please. This is something I think that we're all really excited about. Scott will talk a little bit more. We had a demonstration of it at the Open House and at the Wisp event last week, and that's the quality of experience. You know, one thing at Cambium that we recognize is that it's very difficult to go out and add capacity everywhere. And so are there things that we can do to improve the operations of your network and the network efficiency without having to go out and increase channel size and increase the performance of your backhaul networks? And I think our quality of experience product is really going to resonate with a lot of customers. And what I think we're all excited about as well is it's not dependent on Cambium's wireless solution. It works across multiple platforms. It works across multiple technologies to improve that user experience and for our service providers, even if you're not invested in Cambium's wireless fabric. But this is an exciting product that we'll be releasing, and again, Scott will talk more about the details. Next slide, please. Got a couple of examples here as I wrap up of some customers that are doing some pretty amazing things in terms of the scale and the size of the networks that they're deploying in. So we'll just take a couple of minutes. The first one's Pro Value out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. And they've got a challenge delivering professional quality internet service to residential and enterprise customers that don't have connectivity from other service providers. Very common theme amongst our wireless ISPs. They're using ePMP. They're getting scalability through synchronization and centralized management. We were recognized as the best performing ePMP 3000 access points by Perseen. And what's interesting, I think what's impressive about this network is just the size and scale, covering 55 cities, 5,500 square miles, and 100 towers. Next slide, please. The next one is Aristotle. Aristotle is an interesting company in the sense that they have really spent a lot of time and energy looking for and responding to and uncovering grant opportunities to deliver in some of the most rural areas in Arkansas, and they're delivering up to 100 meg speeds. They're also they're invested in CBRS as well as 5 gig. They're using 850 for licensed microwave backhaul, with the ultimate goal of providing affordable internet service to areas in Arkansas that frankly have no other options. And again, I think this one's very interesting for a lot of folks on the call because they have been very successful in getting the government subsidies and some of the grant funding that's been available. Next slide, please. The next one I think is, again, I talked a little bit about the convergence of enterprise, of Wi-Fi and fixed wireless, and this is a great example. This was the Olympic trials in Oregon, where we combined both the CBRS solution that replaced an old 5 to 10 megabit DSL connection, and we also were able to package that with our XV2-2T, which you'll hear a little bit more about today, but it's unprecedented in terms of its distance and performance and scalability for an outdoor Wi-Fi 6 access point. So aggregate bandwidth of 220 megabits, 157 unique devices connected to Wi-Fi with thousands of live stream videos watched online. This was the only way that many folks could watch these Olympic trials. So this was a good testament again to some of the convergence that we're seeing and the opportunities that we believe our service providers are going to have moving forward with Wi-Fi and fixed wireless. Next slide, please. Gvec. This is a longstanding customer of Cambium. They use our CBRS solutions, our 5G 450 solutions, our unlicensed backhaul, as well as our licensed backhaul. Providing rural connectivity, low density areas. They've got some towers though where they've been able to capture very large percentage of the market because the areas that they're in. They're an electric co-op, so they do have a very good brand and really rely on Cambium's product to maintain the integrity of that brand and deliver high quality solutions. Primarily offering 25/5 to residential customers, but also starting to offer higher capacity services in areas where they can. And they have networks that have been deployed so long, and as I mentioned, they've been able to capture such a high percentage of the customers in those areas. They've got APs with 125 subscribers, and that's, we believe that's something we hang our hat on as unique to Cambium in terms of that level of scalability. But again, a great customer and a great testament to what you can do with fixed wireless. Next slide, please. So I think my final message is, we are so excited about some of the new technologies and new spectrum being allocated with 60 gig and 6 gig and the channel sizes that are available there, really taking us to the next level of throughput and capacity. And I think it's going to give us opportunities with our service providers to compete in areas that we haven't necessarily had those opportunities in the past, where we need gigabit capacity, where you can beat your competition to market in terms of time to market and time to get folks subscribed and online. And we see that with cnWave. Again, we see that with the 6 gigahertz technology that you're going to hear about today. But we are very excited about the future. And the pandemic has certainly demonstrated the demand and the need for what you guys, our wireless ISPs, do, and that's deliver connectivity to folks who don't have a lot of options. And again, I think that in addition to that, the excitement around being able to compete in some of these areas where higher capacities are required, something we're really excited about. So again, I will turn it over to Scott Imhoff, who is our Senior Vice President of Product Management and Planning, to take you through the rest of the presentation, and we'll be fielding questions at the end. And again, I appreciate everybody's time and attention.
Thank you for that, Derek, and it's a pleasure to be here with the audience today. I'll echo Derek's comments that it was energizing to be back at WISPAPALOOZA after the absence. It was energizing to have the audience, and I look forward to seeing each of you on the phone in person at next year's event. We had a robust open house, and we had fantastic interaction, and I'm hoping for the same interaction in a virtual fashion as we go through this presentation. And to reiterate Riley's request, please register your questions in the chat, and we'll endeavor to answer as many of those at the conclusion of the presentation as we can. I wanted to start today's discussion with our view of what's going on at a macro level within our industry and within our markets. And from a Cambium perspective, what we see taking place, starting on the right-hand side, is the MNOs and the MSOs, which have their strength in the denser populated urban centers, suburban edge in terms of providing broadband access, searching for net new customers, searching for new subscriber revenue and ARPU growth, and they're moving more aggressively than they ever have into what has traditionally been the Wisp's core market, the rural, low-density geographies where there aren't a lot of options. And they're doing that, again, because they're searching for net new business, but they're also doing it because technology is allowing them to do it. The advancement of fixed LTE and forthcoming 5G, even CBRS, for example. So the technology is enabling it, and their business demands is dictating it, and they're moving to the left. However, at the same time, we see influence from the low Earth orbit, the LEOs. Starlink is the poster child for that. Also looking to take business from the Wisp markets. Although from our standpoint, and I think from the Wisp that I've talked to over the last couple months, the real risk to that has diminished. And those operators, those Wisps that have robust networks and are providing good service and good customer service have little to fear from the LEOs. But the key point, though, is the rural Wisp with new technology like 60 gig, like 28 gig, like CBRS, has the ability to encroach upon the strongholds of the MNOs and the MSOs. So we do see Wisp moving from the left to the right into these markets. And I'll be frank with you, as I shared with the audience in Las Vegas, Cambium in many respects is an arms dealer. We're going to sell our products and technologies to whomever's interested in adopting those technologies. But of course, our heart and soul is with the Wisp community. And we think we've got products and services that are going to enable you to expand your business from your historic position of strength in those rural, remote, low density markets, and expand not into just fixed wireless broadband to the address, but distribution of that broadband capacity within the address as well. And I'll touch on that as we go through the presentation itself. But as a next step here, we're going to take a quick poll from the audience, and it'll help influence the balance of the presentation. And what we're interested in seeing is, what's your view of where the market is going in your coverage area? Do you subscribe to the macro level environment that I was suggesting? And how do you what's your view of this question and these three responses? So we'll just take a moment and see what your guys' reactions are to this poll. So if you could take a moment just to vote, that would be great. Riley, if you could just shout out when you have sufficient. Okay, I can see them building here now.
Yeah, I'll give it probably a minute and then share the results.
Okay. Doesn't take long for the votes to really stabilize. Okay, so I can see the results here starting to build and kind of stabilize, and roughly 50% of you are expressing concern on the MSOs impacting your community, and I think that's a rightful concern. They most certainly are encroaching on the rural, low density environments. I will say that the great advantage that Wisp have is you are local, you're part of the community, you're invested in the community, and that will carry a great deal of weight with your audience. And with the right technology, with robust networks, you'll be just fine in combating them. And I'm encouraged to see about a quarter of you suggesting that you're going to go after a new market, you're going to expand your business and grow, and that's fantastic. And about a third of you are suggesting, we'll status quo and maintain our business. Okay. Well, one area that we definitely see impacting the business, our business, your business, is the forthcoming government grants, and certainly CAF2 and RDOF were big hitters. But what's coming down from the U.S. government and the Canadian government, for those of you attending from Canada, is significant grant funding. But we also recognize that those grant applications can be daunting. They could require significant network design investment, comprehensive bill of material, written responses on what the objective is and what's to be expected and accomplished, etc. we Cambium, recognizing that, are prepared to provide support in responding to those grant applications. We have helped our partners for quite some time in RFP responses and RFI responses. So we have the process and the mechanism and the methodologies in place to respond to these comprehensive grant applications. And we set up a dedicated site to register. There's a short series of questions to help frame the need and the opportunity, and more importantly, the time frame that you're operating under. If you can hit that website, if you're applying to a grant and you'd like some assistance, fill out the application, and the appropriate Cambium resource will respond quickly and promptly to the request, and we'll see what we can do to assist and support you as best possible. So take note of that. The QR code will take you right to that site, and these slides will be distributed after the presentation if you're not able to pick that up. I'm going to transition and talk a bit about CBRS, Citizens Broadband Radio Service, and the progress that's taken place there. From our standpoint, this is an absolute home run. I happened to have the opportunity last week to meet with Ajit Pai, and he's moved off from the FCC and now is in commercial business with a private equity firm. But I applauded his efforts around CBRS, and from my standpoint, I think from Cambium's standpoint, one of the hallmark wins of his chairmanship. But CBRS, if you go back in time, there was a whole set of perceived applications and use cases where that spectrum was going to be utilized. For the most part, that has not come to be. Most of those use cases and applications, while there might be examples of them, certainly haven't been deployed at volume. But what has been deployed at volume and what has demonstrated great success is fixed wireless access, primarily to the residential address. And then secondarily, there's some municipal applications taking place and some industry applications taking place. But the application of CBRS for fixed broadband access within the residential community, particularly the rural markets, has absolutely been a stunning success in our mind. It took a lot longer than expected and desired to get there. But since that point in time, we've certainly executed. And I can say, and we do publish this quarterly, we have now over 110,000 devices being managed by Cambium CBRS SaaS solution. Our solution itself is really comprehensive and complete. Those of you that aren't familiar with it, it is end-to-end in that we provide the infrastructure, the subscriber radio, the SaaS service that's required to support CBRS. We provide that end-to-end through Cambium Networks. We do partner with three of the principal SaaS providers, Federated, Google, and CommScope, allowing you, the network operator, to decide which of those three is best for you. Having said that, we also enable transition from one to the other. If for whatever reason you make that decision, we can facilitate that transition and migration, and that gives you some flexibility and freedom of choice, and it, competition keeps everybody honest. So I think having three partners there keeps all three driving innovation and advancement and a more complete solution going forward. But we are having success, and it is a complete end-to-end solution, but it's not over. There is evolution taking place within CBRS. You may have heard of SaaS 2.0 through the WIN forum, and advancement of some feature sets and services to better enable co-location, to continue to enhance interference mitigation and ensure optimal performance of the network in the sense of not just access, but the bandwidth that's afforded with the spectrum itself. We Cambium are very active. Matt Mangriotis is very active in WIN forum, and we're active in establishing what those standards are and what those features and services are and how they're going to work, and have introduced many of them in advance of the standard itself. We also have introduced See and Heat, which is a LiDAR-based coverage modeling tool that you can use to model not just CBRS at 3 gig, but also our 5 gig and 60 gig and 2.5, et cetera, but a very comprehensive solution to facilitate coverage modeling. CN Maestro, of course, is the one-stop shop to plan, deploy, and monitor that network. And I think our post-sale support, well, pre-sale support is exceptional, but in the case of CBRS, post-sale support has been stellar as well. that certainly, as adoption has grown and become more standard, I guess, the need is less. But if you're unfamiliar with CBRS, contemplating deployment, I'd encourage you to contemplate Cambium Networks and have a word with many of the customers that are using it today, over 400 independent accounts across the US and its territories. Going back to that intersection of the MNOs and MSOs moving to the left and the Wisp moving to the right, sits our millimeter wave technologies, and first to market of the two, 28 gig to be introduced late this quarter commercially, is 60 gigahertz. And this has was introduced initially commercially in December of 2020, and as we progress through 2021, accelerated growth and adoption of the solution. And I wanted to spend a bit of time on it, starting with a case study. And it's hard to argue that fiber isn't an optimal solution. And if anybody can drop a fiber connection at my doorstep and do so cost effectively, I'm going to be interested in it, and many others will be as well. But having said that, fiber is expensive to deploy, it's expensive to maintain, and in many cases, it simply doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is hybrid networks. The combination of fiber and 60 gigahertz to deliver gigabit to the edge. And 60 gigahertz from a range standpoint, propagation standpoint, is really optimal in that 300 meter kind of range, and which happens to correspond to some of the most expensive distances that fiber to the home or fiber to the enterprise has to cover, particularly if it's buried fiber versus air strung. More important than, or perhaps more important than simply the cost of deploying it, is time to service, the ability to very quickly deploy fixed wireless versus the time to permit, design, construct, and commission a fiber network. It can lead to extended time to service that fixed wireless can accelerate. And a great example of this success is Alaska Communications. We initially got engaged with Alaska Communications to address Eielson Air Force Base, the need to deliver broadband access to housing units there at Eielson. And seeing the success of that, Alaska Communications said, hey, why can't we extend this in our more densely populated cities of Anchorage and Fairbanks? And they've done just that and had tremendous success with it and accelerating it. The picture that you see at the top right is a neighborhood that had a dark fiber ring around it and had been in place for quite some time. Alaska Communications just simply couldn't economically deliver that fiber to the residential address within that neighborhood, and they wanted to compete more aggressively with the DOCSIS provider. Well, they've been able to leverage their dark fiber. They've deployed a CN Wave 60 gig solution with distributed architecture, and they're now delivering gigabit to those addresses where they were never able to do that before. The solution has moved on. Alaska Communications Network has moved on beyond what the status there shows, but they're aggressively deploying and having success with it, and it's what we want other WISPs to contemplate and consider. As I mentioned, the key driver there is cost. A key driver is cost, and we have the third-party analysis and case studies to demonstrate that. And whether it's 41% or 35% or 50%, certainly it's going to differ depending on your local community, labor rates, etc. But we've been able to demonstrate time and time again in these more densely populated areas, fixed wireless is a more economical solution than fiber to the home. And in combination with dark fiber, really makes an ideal solution. We continue to invest in advancement. We have 3 hardware devices today, the distribution node and 2 client nodes. We have a new client node, I guess there's 3 client nodes now, and we have a 4th client node coming online in mid-22. But we're also innovating on the software side, and one of the more significant efforts is channel bonding. So if you're familiar with Terragraph and our CN Wave solution, you'll be seeing a uplift in capability should it be required to deliver multiple gigabits of capacity to that residential address using channel bonding. So as a market leader, why are we having the success that we're having? Why has the adoption been so strong? both in terms of the number of networks and the speed at which those networks are deploying. First, we're fully Terragraph certified, and encourage you to really look at that when considering alternatives to Cambium's 60 gig solution. And there are other alternatives out there, and many of them are in some respects Terragraph certified. But spend some time with the depth of Terragraph and you'll see that Cambium is the most fully qualified and fully certified. We support both IPv4 and IPv6 networking, so take your pick, which you prefer. We support both layer 2 and layer 3 architectures, take your pick. We're happy to support that. We've got flexibility in client selection, client node selection. There's 2 versions of the V3000 depending on the specific gain required and the capacity required. The V1000 is ideal for residential access or CCTV camera transport, etc. in terms of the size, the scale of the device itself, and price point. And the architecturally, 60 gig can be difficult to align, but we've invested in both tools and resources to do the coverage modeling, telescope sites for alignment, and the ability to use beam steer will facilitate ease of deployment in that network. And what I would say is your 3 gig and 5 gig networks are somewhat forgiving in terms of architecture design, whereas 60 gig networks must be architected in order to deliver the reliability and the performance that you're expecting. So do make use of Link Planner and C and Heat and Advanced Network Planner to plan those networks in advance and achieve the performance that you expect. And our team can help you with that, as can our partners. We do have a starter kit that's available if you're not familiar with this. We recognize that 60 gig is new, but we want to make it readily available to our customers and our partners and put together a very aggressive program to give you the basic elements of a 60 gig CN-Wave network. So the kit itself consists of a V5000 distribution node through 2 V3000. So you can do some high performance point-to-point or high performance client, point-to-multipoint clients, and 2 V1000s. With those 5 elements, you'll be able to really get familiar with 60 gig, what it can do, how it can work, what the network limitations are, etc. So take advantage of it. The program will expire at the end of December, so you got about 60 days to sign up for one of these starter kits. Again, the QR code will take you to the registration site. I want to move on to how there are other ways to expand and build your business as a WISP other than 60 gigahertz and additional geography and your point-to-multipoint architecture. And one significant trend that we see taking place within our enterprise business is the acceleration of managed service providers. Managed service providers deploy and manage Wi-Fi networks within enterprises. And I think of these guys basically as an indoor WISP. And when I think of WISP and the technical talent that exists, the skill sets that exist, the equipment that you have, the familiarity with your technology, this is a perfect space for a WISP to expand and become an indoor WISP in the form of a managed service provider. But let's start with a poll here, and I'm curious from the audience, how many of you are already acting as what you would consider a managed service provider? Curious to see what this audience reflects versus what we saw in Las Vegas. Okay, poll is definitely trending to what we saw in Vegas. That's I guess shouldn't be a surprise. Okay, so roughly 50% of you indicate that you're already an MSP. That's fantastic. What I would say is Cambium has a managed service provider program that provides some structured pricing, some resources and tools for the MSP community. And based on our analysis of the registered MSPs that we have, and if 50% of this audience is an MSP, you're not taking advantage of a program that might appeal to you. So there are some tools and resources to help build your MSP practice. I'd encourage you to take a look at that program and register when you have a moment to do so. Good to see roughly 20% of you are contemplating becoming an MSP. Hopefully the next couple of slides will encourage you to take that step. And about a third of you said no plans, which doesn't surprise me. And hopefully the next couple of slides in the conversation might encourage you to reconsider that position. So let's start with some background. So this is not just Cambium saying, hey, this MSP thing is a great idea, you should look at it. Gartner's 2020 end user IT services study reinforces my statements and actually in part supports them in a very strong fashion. And what you see is not only are these enterprises moving to outsourced IT services, they're doing it at an accelerated clip, and they're committing to it for the long haul, which is what you want to see. If you're not a fan of Gartner and you'd like to test alternate sources, that this is a second source, effectively reinforcing the same message from Gartner and reinforcing the same message from Cambium Networks and what we're seeing on our enterprise business. One of the fastest growing segments that we sell into is the MSP space. And this survey simply reinforces the same message, that this trend is real, it's taking place, and it's accelerating. And we see more and more enterprises looking to outsource the design, deployment, and management of their Wi-Fi access network, and in part because they simply don't have the skill sets and they don't want to invest in hiring those skill sets either when a cost-effective third party can do it for them. So we conducted, as we do every year for the last 5 years, this is our 5th year, we conducted our global Wisp survey, and even within our own Wisp survey on a worldwide basis, we do see our Wisp starting down this path. So you're not alone. You know, the live poll that we just conducted said 50% of you are there. This is a bit lighter than that, but there is a community within the Wisp community that's acting as a managed service provider. Peer-to-peer learning is great, and Cambium is stepping up to support those Wisps making that transition. We have a pretty strong value proposition coming from our enterprise business over into the MSP space and into our Wisp community. We have industry-leading price performance. We have a very rich freemium model on CN Maestro, where the vast majority of capabilities are free. And then for those that require advanced capability, advanced services and functions, CN Maestro X would be appropriate. We complement the Wi-Fi access network with our CN Matrix switch platform. And as I mentioned, we've got that compelling program for MSPs. We do have on the price performance study, we did undertake in collaboration and coordination with Tolly Group, a independent evaluation of our Wi-Fi 6 platform versus alternatives that are prevalent in the MSP space, Aruba, Meraki, and Ruckus, our CommScope. And I encourage you to hit this QR code and read that study in detail and what you'll find, and you can assess the merits of the metrics, etc. But very strong performance from Cambium's Wi-Fi portfolio relative to those stalwarts in the industry. We're disruptive on our price performance and encourage you to take a look. Here you see just an outtake of that study and what that total cost of ownership looks like. And in virtually every respect, Cambium is superior. I mentioned CN Maestro X as a premium on top of CN Maestro Essentials. The MSP functionality is oriented towards multi-tenancy. That is typical of an MSP. You're gonna manage independent networks for a multitude of for enterprises. You're going to want to look at that the aggregation of those independent networks as a whole. So you see how your business as a whole is performing as an MSP, where those challenges and issues might be, and then you want to be able to very quickly drill into those individual networks. You may want to extend select capabilities to the client For example, changing SSID, maybe that's something that you want to allow them to do, change passwords, whatever it might be. The MSP functionality within CM Maestro X is geared towards helping MSPs manage their business in an automated fashion through a single pane of glass and supporting multi-tenancy, and just one of the examples of how we're supporting that space. I mentioned the service provider program. Again, hit the QR code. It'll take you to the register. It will take you to a link to learn more about the MSP program from Cambium Networks, and it'll allow you to register for that program as well. And for the 50% of you that said, hey, you're acting as an MSP, I definitely encourage you to hit that website and take a look at what additional resources are available to you. So, our view, Cambium's view, seeing this from the enterprise side, seeing the skill sets and capabilities of the Wisp, you have the technical acumen, you have the local presence, you have the practical experience. You can offer a differentiated service than most MSPs can, in that you can bring the broadband to the address and distribute it within the home. So you have a more complete control over the solution and the service and the quality of experience. The time is now. And for the 50% of you that have not yet taken that step, please consider. And for the, I think, 30% of you that were contemplating it, I would encourage you to take that step now. So Derek mentioned quality of experience, and Cambium, of course, will continue to focus on building better, faster pipes, greater capacity using diversity of spectrum, licensed and unlicensed, standards-based, proprietary-based, or bespoke. But we also want to make better use of the pipe that we're providing. And that's really what quality of experience is about, how to make better use of the pipe that we're providing. And the approach that we're taking is really focused on the application. We want to improve, I'll say, your subscriber, your customer's experience at an application level. Most consumers, as we know, maybe they hit speed test and they want to see how many bits per second they're getting. But what really influences their perception of the network is how their favorite application works, whether it's Netflix or cloud-based Microsoft Office. How is their interaction at an application layer? What's the latency like? Is there jitter? Those types of experiences and how they're doing their day-to-day life, work or play or learn, is going to influence how they perceive the network. And our approach to quality of experience is really application-based and focused on improving how any one application performs. And we've done that as close to the edge of the network itself. We've developed an appliance that sits at the tower site. We've coupled that with an application that you have visibility to and control of, where you can assess the performance of any one path off of that tower site from that appliance. So we want to measure the quality of experience as close to the edge of the network as possible, and we want to influence the performance of the network at the edge. And we do that through this appliance. From the value of quality of experience, the optimization at the edge is key. We want to shape the traffic based on the application itself. So understanding what's optimal for the application to perform optimally, and then ensuring that the network aligns to that requirement. To be able to manage discrete subscriber service level agreements with rate limiting, to deny denial of service attacks, to address those, to provide insights to what applications are being utilized, to understand usage patterns and give you the opportunity to upsell advanced service level agreements to address capacity requirements, demands at different times of the day. These are all the things that are going into the development of our quality of experience solution. We will be, we've got field trials underway, and you're going to see this introduced to the market relatively soon. I know a lot of you are very interested in 6 gigahertz. That was exciting to see 1.2 gigabits of spectrum to be made available, and I think 856 megahertz for outdoor applications. And Cambium is developing 6 gigahertz platforms right along with advancement AFC and the overall rules and regulations around it. So I wanted to give you guys a quick update on where we're at with 6 gigahertz. And I'm going to start with the ePMP platform. So you've seen a continual progression of performance enhancements and improvements on the ePMP on a generational basis. The current platform, flagship platform, is the ePMP 3000 with a complete portfolio of subscriber radios around it, the introduction of 4x4 MU-MIMO. So that's kind of where we're starting from. In 2022, you will see us introduce a 6 gigahertz ePMP platform. That generation will be the ePMP 4000. Very creative of us to go from 3000 to 4000. That platform is under development today. It will support 4x4 and operate between 5.9 and 7.1. So you'll get the full breadth of the 6 gigahertz band, and that'll be available in the US in line with the release of the spectrum from the FCC and support of AFC. We will then follow that with the introduction of the 4000 platform on the ePMP, 5 gigahertz on the ePMP 4000. And with that, we'll pick up 8x8 MU-MIMO. Now, just to be clear, it's 2 different pieces of hardware, the ePMP 4000 6 gigahertz and the ePMP 4000 5 gigahertz. The 6 gigahertz will support 4x4, which we believe is appropriate given the relatively clean spectrum. And then 5 gigahertz will support up to 8x8 and be available in the 23 timeframe. Now, we did this with ePMP 3000. Many of you recall that we first brought forward the Force 300-25, and we did that in a point-to-point configuration. And that allowed us to bring the technology to market, to mature it, to provide immediate applications in point-to-point. And then that same device evolved into the first subscriber radio attaching to the AP. Very similar approach here with 802.11ax. And moving forward with our capabilities there with the Force 425 and the Force 400 connectorized. So these products are available today and shipping, and exercise the capabilities that 802.11ax is bringing to us and providing really significant performance improvements in a point-to-point configuration, and then moving over as subscriber radios on the 5 gigahertz ePMP 4000. Give you a little bit more detail, some speeds and feeds. Give you a sense of what we're going to be advancing. On the left-hand side is the 8x8 5 gigahertz, and the right side is the 4x4 6 gigahertz. And I think the key metric here is the RF band. The 5 gig will stretch from 4.9 to 6.1, whereas the 6 gig will support 5.9 to 7.25. So some overlay between the two of them, but really focus on different sets of the spectrum. We'll have a complete set of subscriber radios attaching to those devices, to the APs themselves, as you would expect. And this is just a starting point, and we'll of course build that out over time. Not to be left behind and not to be forgotten, our flagship platform, the PMP 450, is also under development for its 5th generation, the 450V. The 450V will support the full breadth of the band. So it will support 5 gig to 7 gig, the full RF band in a single piece of hardware. That platform will initially support 4x4 at 6 gigahertz, and then move forward over time to support up to 22 by 22. Not ready to make an absolute commitment to 24 by 24, but that's certainly our design objective. That platform will start field trials in 2022, and we will likely see initial commercial shipments in late 2022 or very early 2023. And of course, support interoperability with other 450 platforms, so that extensive network of field installed devices carried forward. Very, very powerful platform, the V, and as industry changing as the 450M was, with 14 by 14 massive MU-MIMO, I think you will be equally impressed with what the team has underway for the 5th generation, the 450V, as we advance that in the market. You can see that in terms of just raw data rate that we expect to deliver and the step functions that occur with each of these generational updates on the 450 platform. And you'll see 2 significant steps with the initial introduction of 450V and the subsequent introduction of the massive mu MIMO implementation on 450MV. I mentioned 28 gig early on, and there's a few interesting things about 28 gig. One is that spectrum becoming available in North America, and the advancement of 3GPP 5G standards making use of the band. And we believe there's some applications tactically here in the North America market, and strategically as we use this platform as a foundation to progress other RF bands on 3GPP 5G. So just for those of you that aren't familiar with it, 28 gig is the most common 5G NR band worldwide. There are 3 subbands to it, 257, 258, and 261. 261 being the operable band here in the US. And it was largely sold out in auctions 101 and 102, but there is spectrum available, and there's some possibility of additional blocks of spectrum becoming available from the current spectrum holders sub-licensing it out. So while you may not have spectrum today, it's not without possibility that spectrum would be available in the future. We are using the 3GPP 5G NR air interface for the development of our 28 gig platform. It is a software-defined architecture, and that enables us to take advantage of future iterations and enhancements that might occur. Our intention is to align to release 15 at launch, and we've got 2 field trials now deployed, and 2 more that will be online in all likelihood by the end of this week, so about 2 more days for them to come up. I was on a call yesterday. The 3rd one was being installed yesterday and finishing up today, and I think the 4th one is starting today and finishing up tomorrow. All 4 of those are headed towards commercial deployment following the proof of concept evaluation and test. In terms of differentiation, what we've done, unlike the initial use of 28 gig in mobile infrastructure, you can think of Verizon and your Samsung phone, is we focused exclusively on fixed access. And interestingly enough, 3GPP did take fixed access into consideration and has specific use cases around it. And we've gone all in, if you will, on those use cases and those architectures. And we've been able to complement that with our real world learning around CM Medusa and massive mu MIMO, taking advantage of our learnings at 5 gigahertz and point-to-multipoint CBRS, and eliminating the complexity and cost associated with supporting mobility. And you see that on the infrastructure side and the chipsets, and the need to consider the limitations of a handheld device accessing the network. We've been able to get rid of all of that and focus on the principal application of fixed access. And I think that you'll find it an optimal solution. It's purpose-built, yet standards-based. So the combination of taking advantage of that standard and all of the work that went into the air interface to enhance it, and again, 3GPP did take into account specifically fixed use cases in the development of the standard. So taking advantage of all of that, stripping out all of the overhead associated with the ability to support mobility, and layering in our practical experience is leading to really an optimal solution on this platform. We're really excited about it. And then that gives us the opportunity to build additional RF bands on top of that infrastructure. So a few more slides here. I've mentioned CN Maestro as our freemium-based platform. We introduced it initially on our enterprise side of the house to support our Wi-Fi technology. Looks like I might have some challenges here. I'm not sure why this is happening. Bear with me just a moment, guys. I've lost my screen. Sorry about that. All right, you should be able to see my screen again, I hope. But anyway, CN Maestro is our single pane of glass cloud managed platform. We introduced it with the initial introduction of CN Pilot to support our enterprise business, and then have subsequently expanded it to handle our entire portfolio. So a great deal of maturity, multiple releases over time, and now a very rich platform. It is intended to support a holistic management of the network from day zero to allowing the pre-adoption, pre-configuration, pre-assignment of attributes in a fixed wireless broadband network, to supporting the actual deployment of those devices within the network itself, and then effectively managing those devices over their life cycle within the network, understanding their performance, the health of the device itself, the network interaction, software releases, etc. So complete end-to-end holistic management is the intention of CN Maestro. I suspect that we haven't dotted all the T's and dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's yet, and we continue to get suggestions and recommendations on to enhance it, and we take those seriously and build those into our plan of intent. So if you're using it and have some thoughts, please share those with us, and we'll look to get those incorporated. I mentioned it's a freemium-based model. We have CN Maestro Essentials, and for 90% of the use cases and applications, CN Maestro Essentials is effective and sufficient. Great. We're committed to making that persisting with a free version and enhancing that over time. That there's no intention of eliminating that, and it will persist. We have added CN Maestro X, and we've invested in additional capabilities, features, data retention, etc., that a subset, the 10%, do find value in, and that is a for-fee service, and your Cambium partner or Cambium resource can walk you through in greater detail the distinction between the two and the cost structure between the two. But just to reinforce, CN Maestro Essential remains available and will remain available, and in the vast majority of cases satisfies the needs of the network operator. One of the things that we're doing to enhance the value of CN Maestro and the broader ecosystem is integration between CN Maestro and the more common ecosystem partners in the market, VistNet being a great example and the first example of this integration effort. And we're working collaboratively to demonstrate, well, not demonstrate, to do intelligence exchange of data, to eliminate data entry, to drive more efficient operation between the network and the billing systems, and at the end of the day, to deliver a superior experience to the network operator themselves, taking advantage of both this and CN Maestro X to do that. And you'll see additional ecosystem partners come online through the balance of 21. There's 3 others that are currently under evaluation or test, and you'll see some additions after that in the 22 timeframe going forward. CN Heat, if you're not familiar with that, this tool also continues to mature and get enhanced. We were doing demonstrations of CN Heat 2.0, which is a substantial improvement in automation and speed of response. But CN Heat uses LiDAR data to give incredibly accurate coverage models in a defined geographic area. And network operators use this to select tower sites or in reverse, determine what the coverage footprint is going to look like from existing vertical assets. They're using it to understand what addresses can effectively be covered at what performance level, and even down to where on that address should the client radio, the subscriber radio, be deployed. So it's helping with the kind of the macro level decision making that network operators undertake on network expansion. It's also facilitating elimination of failed truck rolls and be able to assess very quickly whether an address is going to be covered by the network or not. The ROI on this is tremendous. So I want to pause here for just a moment. I'm curious what Cambium is contemplating is how we can assist and support marketing efforts. And it originates from some work that we've been doing with CN Heat, where we're able to do reverse lookups and identify not just kind of the generic coverage model, but very explicit addresses within that coverage model, and then be able to support digital marketing efforts around those identified addresses. So if you could answer this question, it'll help us influence some of the steps that we're contemplating taking around supporting your marketing efforts to help grow your business. This is pretty interesting. Okay. Lots of interest in integrating subscriber data into digital marketing, and lots of interest, Derek, in your reference to customizing Cambium's collateral and literature to help them go to market. That's awesome. Best practices, great. Okay, very good. Thank you very much for that. So, couple last slides here. CN Archer, if you're not familiar with this is a app for smartphone, and it's intended to be utilized primarily from the installation team that's deploying subscriber radios. It supports today 450 EPMP and CN Ranger, and you can utilize it to upgrade, configure, align, and test a path. We have it used quite extensively by a wide range of network operators, and what we're finding is it's accelerating the speed of deployment. So it's making their crews more efficient. It's eliminating human error in data entry, and it's ensuring a more complete data picture of the network. It interfaces gracefully with CN Maestro, but can certainly be used independent of that. It has a number of enhancements on the immediate horizon, including support of 60 gigahertz. And this may or may not be an issue, but a common app across Android and iOS to help with training and use across network operators where there's probably a mix of devices itself. And then looking forward a bit, the ability to download work orders into the device itself to further automate workflow across your enterprise applications. So in conclusion, Cambium Networks, Derek mentioned it's our 10-year anniversary. So time flies when you're having fun. Derek and I were both here on October 28th when we exited Motorola. It's been a blast the last 10 years as we come up on our anniversary here in a day's time, I guess. And you look at what Cambium is doing in pursuit of excellence. We're investing heavily in spectrum and regulatory advocacy, both domestically here in the US and around the world. Here in the US, we work very closely with WISPA. They're doing a fantastic job for their membership in working with the FCC and Congress, and now extending more aggressively into state level advocacy. And Cambium is there supporting them, and as well as undertaking our own investments. We recognize the advantage that the government funding programs have, and want to provide support to ensure that you have the opportunity to take advantage of those initiatives. We want to make it easier to provide complete solutions to customers. The integration with VistNet is an example of that, but an investment and focus on end-to-end solutions and integration with the broader ecosystem is underway and will be expanded over time. We want to see Wisp grow. Certainly self-serving, but we believe Wisp can grow into those urban and suburban markets with the advancements in technology. But we also think that you can grow the types of services that you offer your clients. If you're bringing broadband to the address, the enterprise address specifically, why not manage the distribution of that broadband within the building? You can provide a complete end-to-end solution. You have the expertise, the technical acumen, the vehicles and the resources to do that. It's a natural evolution of your business, and we really want to see you take advantage of that. Cambium continues to invest across the board with our focus on fixed wireless broadband, with our focus on enterprise access. We're taking advantage of standards. We're taking advantage of new spectrum as it comes on board, and our end goal is to be the superior wireless networking solution for you. That's what we're standing up to do. That's our mission, and we look forward to doing that with you and for you for the coming 10 years. thank you, and I appreciate your time today. Riley, I think we can turn it over to any questions that might have popped up during Derek or I's presentation.
Hey, Scott, this is Derek. I've got a couple. I've got a bit of an echo. I've got a couple questions.
Go ahead.
One question is around the QoE device itself and the power, and how having to put one of these devices at each tower, particularly some of the smaller sites, can be a bit of a challenge. And so I guess the question for you is there thoughts or a plan to make it more of a application as opposed to the need for a hardware box at every site?
So a couple thoughts here, Derek. One is, here in the very near term, you'll see us gearing up for dedicated webinars on the QoE solution, and do a better job of educating interested parties on the solution, in terms of architecture, deployment, utilization, et cetera. So in the very near term, you'll see a ramp up in opportunities to learn more about QoE in depth. Second, for whomever's asking the question, I think we probably captured your contact information, and we'll follow up with you offline to answer any specific questions and take some insight and suggestions from you. Third, I probably didn't do a very good job of explaining it in the essence of time, but it is actually a combination of a piece of hardware, an appliance, and an application. So there is an application running network-wide in addition to the appliance at each of the selected sites that are going to support it. I understand the desire to eliminate hardware, if you will, and really go to a pure cloud-based application. And we've tried to balance the benefits of that hardware acceleration at the edge. Edge computing certainly is an industry trend in many markets, industrial and government in particular. But to take advantage of the hardware acceleration at the edge and balance that with a cloud-based solution that's easier to manage. We'll iterate on that, so we'll see how that takes place over time. What I would say is the device at the edge is pretty autonomous, pretty lightweight, and we've tried to take into consideration the cost to deploy that edge appliance and the cost to manage that edge appliance over time.
Thanks, Scott. Another good question, I think, for the group that's very relevant right now is, what's our roadmap to getting to meeting the 100 by 100 requirement for the federal programs?
Yeah, so actually, in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that Congress is continuing to put forward, and knock on wood, will get passed here at some point, particularly the piece that's supporting broadband expansion. They've backed off of that 100 by 100 and moved it to an 80 by 20, which frankly is more realistic in terms of actual utilization. So that piece is moving forward at 80-20, sorry, 100-20, 100 down, 20 up. And I think you'll see that percolate down into state level and local level grant applications. Now, setting that aside, 100 by 100, realistically, you're looking at the use of 6 gigahertz or 60 gigahertz to support 100 by 100.
Great, thanks, Scott. And another question around Terragraph specifically, and Cambium's implementation of Terragraph. Are all manufacturers in the Terragraph program created equally, or is it a scenario where certain manufacturers are doing different things in their implementation of Terragraph?
So to be quote unquote Terragraph certified, you do not, there's multiple, I'll say chapters, maybe the best way to look at it, that you can be certified to, and you don't need to certify to all of them to be considered Terragraph certified. So good or bad, what's been allowed is to call yourself Terragraph certified without necessarily checking all of the boxes. Cambium has checked all of the boxes. Not all manufacturers have done the same. So, you know, I don't want to throw rocks at my competition that directly, but I just encourage the audience to educate themselves and really spend some time in understanding what elements of Terragraph each manufacturer has certified to. And what you'll recognize is that Cambium has checked all of the boxes and others have not. And then in addition to that, you start to see some distinction and differentiation on the maturity of the software, the features and services that are enabled at a manufacturer level, distinctions on the hardware architecture. For example, the two-sector architecture of the V5000 and how that's been optimized for practical deployment versus 360-degree coverage of some of our manufacturers.
Great, thanks, Scott. The next question is a pricing and distance question. We'll follow up directly on that around, it's particularly around 60 gig, what's the price range and distance. But I think in general, what you'll find is the product itself is designed to be deployed in a higher density, low site design, and that's been built into the cost in terms of low cost CPEs, very competitively priced distribution nodes. We recognize that the infrastructure required to deploy a CN wave network is different than what we're used to in the past. And so I think that's reflected in the pricing of the individual hardware. Scott, those are some of the good questions. Will a copy of these slides be made available?
Yes, we will make copies of the slides available.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, I think we're a bit over time, but appreciate everybody's time and attention here. I think this is it's great for us to be able to extend the reach of this of this discussion that we had in the open house that was such a success at WISPAPALOOZA. So appreciate everyone's time and look forward to engaging with you all very soon.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Riley.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you, Scott and Derek, for all the helpful information. We'll be posting a recording of this webinar on the community, as well as sharing it in an email to all attendees shortly, so please be on the lookout for that. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day.